Hi everyone, welcome back. In this second video, we are actually going to do an install of Crunch. If you are not seeing the screen properly, please adjust your YouTube resolution and increase it to something like 1080p or 720p, something like that, and you should be able to see clearly. As per usual, when I do these type of sessions, these practical sessions, I split the screen. So on the left, you can see like a checklist of things that we're going to do. And on the right, I actually have the terminal. So the first thing, and lending off the previous, is that we need to have an on-chain account created and we need to record the seed phrase. So I'll take that off. And if you choose to use Element, we would need to record the username and password. So there are many configurations that Crunch can be set up in. So I'm just going through one path and explaining some options along the way. If there's a particular use case, I recommend that you reach out to Turboflakes or myself, and we'll try to help you get this thing set up. Alright, so the first thing we need to do on the checklist is to modify the Polkadot service to open a WebSocket port. Now I mentioned that in the previous video, the local WebSocket port is preferred, but you can configure to use the public one. So in this case, let me show you how that's done. You do sudo nano and you go to your service really. Go. Okay, so the line that you're looking at is actually this one here that says --ws--port, and the default is 9944, but I'm using 9941. Really, you can use any available port within the usual limits. Now this is just a test server, so don't be alarmed, right, if you see anything looking weird. Okay, so once you put that flag in, you Control X. In your case, you will need to save. Then you do the sudo systemctl daemon reload, and then sudo systemctl restart your Polkadot service. I wasn't getting any help there with the tab, right? So that's one step done. Portions of this setup I would have done before, not in different takes of the video, and to also save us some time because some of the steps take a while. Okay, so the next step is to create a new user. I'm going to use sudo and I'm going to say add user, and I'm going to call it payment, right? No, just payment. We're going to be asked for a password. I'm just going to put my password. Ask again. I don't need a name, don't need a room number, work, all of these things. I'm just hitting enter and I'm going to say why. It's all correct. So great. I have a new user and I called it payment. So I am going to cross this off. We need to download some supporting software. So all of these commands I will put in a paste bin link in the description. You hit enter and it's already installed. Now this may take a bit longer on your machine. As I said, I did some of these before just so that we can save some time, but it's just a copy paste command and run. So let us cross this out. Now the next step in which we download Rust, we should do this as the user that we just created. Now why did I create that user? I should have mentioned it before. That user is the one that's going to have that the service that we are going to create later on is going to run as, and the important thing is that it should not have sudo privileges. Right, that's, if you notice, I didn't add it to the sudo users. and that's just to minimize on any risk. You know, we don't want, if that somehow gets compromised, that user has some pseudo privs, right? So we can log out and log back in as payment, but I'm just going to take a shortcut and I'm going to do sudo su and we call the user payment. Right now we need to go, if I do a pwd, I'm in the home folder of Ansible user. So I would like to go to see my home, which is the homes, the payment home, right? So I'm just going to do a clear so we get back up to the top of the screen. And the next step is to download Rust. So we issue this command, enter. Now, why do I have to download Rust? Well, in this tutorial, I'm building from source. And that also lent to why we needed some of the supporting software as well. As an alternative, you can actually download the binary, the precompiled binary from the Crunch repo, and Turboflakes has also made available an auto updater script. So you can look out for that as well. Right, so this is one that I did not do, I did not execute on this particular user. What I have done, I'm going to clear so that we get back to the top of the screen, right? What I've done is that many of these installation steps I did under a separate user called payments with an S. So just to save time, I will be using the payments. Right, so this is actually just a command, git clone, and it downloads. It's very, very fast. So if we do ls, we will see crunch. And if we go into crunch, the crunch folder, here we type cargo build, enter. This is going to take some time. So while this is going on, I'm just going to explain some other steps, and then I already have this set up under a separate user and we're just going to switch. So cargo build, and this is going to do something that's going to take some time, very CPU dependent. So once we have the binary built, we need to actually, or what I would recommend is that we build this into a service. And the service will run every time the computer starts. You can use your systemctl and restart and all of those nice stuff. But we would need to build a command that we are going to run, since Crunch has many flags and all those sort of things, and I have that already compiled, or I should say formulated, and I'm going to bring it across. Here we go. And this is what the service is going to look like. Okay, so I hope that's large enough. Let me see if I can get a zoom. Alright, so I'm just going to control plus. There we go. Very large. Okay. So what it says, and let's look at the basics. We have a description, which is a norm. We have the name of the user in the group. Now notice the S, because I didn't build under payment. I actually had one that I did before under payments with an S. And the first thing we look at is where is the executable. That's the first line. And you would notice that when it builds, it goes to /home/payments crunch, which is the folder we cloned from Git. It goes into a subfolder on that folder called target, and then debug, and then the actual crunch binary. So I keep this, you know, as a separate path, so that if a separate path from the next items that are coming up, which are the config files. Because if I delete the home directory or the clone directory, I don't want it to also delete my config files as well. Okay, So the next step, we are going to specify our config file, and the config file has in it, and I'll show you a little later, that's where you store your addresses that you are going to be paying out for, and where you store the element, username and passwords and stuff like that. Thereafter, we are going to specify the WebSocket URL, and as you can see, I'm going to the local host and the port that I specified. Next, we specify a subcommand called rewards, and under rewards, we can say this is the private file, the path to the private file, and the private file is just a file with your seed phrase included in one single line with spaces between. So let's say it is the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. That's, I'm not counting the words. You'll have THE space quick QUICK space and so on and so on. And one line, and that's it. And that's your private file. Now obviously this is a live demo with an actual private file, so I'm not going to show you my private file, but I think that's quite easy to set up. And the last line, again, you would see there is no slash, right? Because it's the last line. This one is specific to the setup or the use case that I'm setting up right now, in which I am not sending the information to the public matrix room. So if you take this off, right, you will blank this off, and of course your last line, no next line, right? If you do that, it will publish all of the output to the public channel, and some users don't want that, so in this particular setup I am not including it. Okay, so again in the paste bin I will have the full details. Okay, so from here on, let me just delete all this other stuff. Backspace, backspace, backspace. This is the config file. The config file, now all of these things with the hashes are comments, so they don't really count. They just give some descriptions, right? What really counts is the one down here. This is actually a wrap line. So let me expand it so it doesn't wrap. There we go. So this is the stashes variable that we are going to provide information for, and really all we need to do is provide hashes, addresses here, comma delimited, right? So we'll just leave it as that, and I will do hello and so on, right? You know, I don't have the exact addresses, so, and if you're using one, you just leave it without any comma. Okay, so the next bit of information, which is optional if you're using the matrix bot, is that you specify the username and password for the bot, as well as the user that you would like to message. So let me explain this. When you create the account you created as a prerequisite will be the account that the bot logs into, and that is these latter two variables, right? So we're going to set the matrix bot user, this is the bot username, and this is the bot's password. This user here, which we don't need to specify a password for, is the user that the bot will open a private chat with and message. Okay, so this is one of the features that the bot has, and it can message you privately instead of going to the public channel, and that's what I'm setting up now. So my paranodes, my bot using paranodes will message my regular user, which is Paradox, right? So you can change this up as you need to, and this is the useful thing that, you know, it sends you messages and tells you when it has payments to process. Okay, so what we would need to do, and let me hope we're not time, I'm going to move this off to another screen. We are going here, oops, yes, I actually timed out. So allow me just to log back in. Oh, it actually, let me close this. Right, I will just go up here and I will do restart session. Yeah, so that way I don't need to resize the window. Super secret password. Right, and we are going to sudo su payment. Right, sudo password. I'm going to clear. I'm going to cd. Right, and pwd, so I'm in the payment. Right, so I will have my crunch, and I'm going to do make directory on the outside, and I'm going to call it stuffs. Right, I go into stuffs, and here I'm just going to do nano, and I'm going to call the file .env.kusama. Right, and what I will do, I'm going to copy and paste. Control X, yes, enter. I'm going to do nano, and I'm going to do dot private. Let me see what I called it in my service. One moment, I think I called it private file. Private underscore file. Super secret seed phrase, and you know, you just type your seed phrase there. I am going to say yes, I would like to save, enter. Now if I do an ls, you see nothing, right? So I just want to remind you, these files are hidden, and as I mentioned before, security by obscurity is no real security, right? So if you do a ls-la, the files do display. Okay, so we need to, at this stage, exit, because we want to create, now that we have the config file and the private file, and we have our binary built, we have everything we need to do to set up the service. So we exit, we go back to a user that has sudo privileges, and we do sudo, and in this case you will do like nano /etc /systemd/system/ and let us call it KSM payments 2 or payment.service, right? And what we will do, we will copy paste the service information in that I described before. Control X. Do you want to save? Yes. Payment, enter. And we will do sudo systemctl enable ksm underscore payment.service, enter. I'm not going to do that right now actually, because I've already set up one called payments. So if we do sudo nano, actually I'll just bring it up and I just add the s, right? I already have this set up, it's enabled, and I started it. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is do sudo, and that's all that there is to do. Now we just need to start the service. So we'll do sudo systemctl start. Now I'm going to do ksm underscore payments, because that's the one that actually has the binary, and I did all my work on it before. Okay, so now that I started it, or I should say restart, because it was already running in the background, and I am going to do status at this point in time. Let us take a look, make sure everything is okay, and it is green, and I'm seeing some info. So I'm just going to take a look privately and see what's happening. Yep, So I don't want to show you my element screen, it's private stuff, but at this point in time, you should get a message from your bot asking to open a channel. You're going to accept and you're going to see information being relayed to you. So I hope that you like this video. I hope everything worked out well. Unfortunately, I couldn't do all of the steps live. The cargo build really takes a long time, and I know I would lose your attention. So again, if there are any issues, reach out to Turboflakes. He's the developer, very supportive and active, and you can also reach out to me as a secondary. Okay, so that's it. Thank you for viewing and have a good one. Bye.